Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard to A World to Listen podcasting. Thank you for attending today's sharing session. My name is Vivian, and yes, I will be your host for the day. Hi, Keshin. All right, so before we start, I would like to remind all of you to keep your microphone on mute, and don't worry, we'll have time for you to speak up during the Q&A session. All right, so for those who are here, hi, 61 people here, hi. Once again, thank you for all of you. I appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule and join us today. And I know it's Saturday, it's supposed to be Netflix and chill. But no worries, I believe you are not going to waste this 1 hour as we are going to have a lot of fun conversation here. All right, so as you can see from the background behind me, you will be able to know that we are going to dive into the world of podcasting, which will be presented by our guest speaker later. So before I introduce my speaker, I would like to ask you a few questions. How many of you listen to podcasts before? Yeah, you can type yes or no in the chat box. All right, okay, a lot of people raise their hand. Maybe they listen to podcasts. Yes, okay, there's a lot of no, yes, yes, okay, quite amazing. For those who didn't listen to podcasts before, no worries. That's why we came here today, right? We are here to talk about podcasting, and I'm sure by the end of this sharing session, you will have a better idea of what podcasting is all about. All right, personal. All right, let me read one. Podcast is my background noise when I'm working. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's start our sharing session now. If you guys are ready, please click the raise hand button 2 times. Okay, at least I hear the ding 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 sound. I know that you are ready to go. Okay, so everyone good to go. Okay, and I'm sure you're all aware that we got a special guest speaker with us today. She's now a media and digital executive at Vox Eureka. At the same time, she's also producing and hosting her very own podcast called Kawaii Bio. Today, she will be sharing her story as a podcaster and how she started her very own podcast at Spotify. So I believe this may help some of you to have a better insight into podcasting and become the next podcaster as well, just like her. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Miss Violet. Hi, Miss Violet, how are you?
Hi everyone, my name is Violet Lau, a media and PR exec in the day at Vox Eureka, and a podcaster at Kawaii Bio during the night, aka when the best ideas come alive, right? Thank you all for having me today, and it's amazing meeting everyone here. So, hello everyone, and I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. And I'm super excited for this session today, and hope that everyone is too. Woohoo!
Oh, yeah,
And
here we go.
yeah, without further ado, let's go, Vivian. Come on, let's go.
I'm really happy to have you here, and I also believe we are going to have a lot of amazing conversation here.
Hmm.
All right, so but before we get into the topic of how you started your own podcast, I would like to ask you a few questions so that everyone here can get to know you a little bit better. So,
Olay.
are you ready, Miss Violet?
Let's go, let's go. Come on, Vivian.
Okay, I'm gonna start this sharing session with this question. What motivated you to start podcasting?
Ooh. Okay, so what motivated me to start podcasting? Okay, so to be frank, right, my sister and I didn't really plan to be podcasters of any content creators of sorts. It was just really in the spur of the moment kind of thing. And we decided, you know what, let's just do it. It's no secret, right, that me and my sister have a really, really good relationship. Our chemistry is impeccable. If you meet us in real life, you would know. And it's quite funny for us to have our like conversations get recorded because we talk so much. We are like miss talk a lots, right? So it was quite funny if we were to listen back to our conversations and just laugh. And we've always joked that how we wanted to always be having our own reality TV show because keeping up with the Kardashians, right? We wanted to be like them. And the next best thing is that to host our own podcasting because we are not like the most prettiest, the most gorgeous people lah. So our voice would do, right? And that's why we decided to, you know what, let's start a podcast, let's create content for the world and make our reality TV daydream into a reality. And that's how it is now. And we have never looked back ever since.
Okay, and that's really cool. It was interesting to know that a TV reality show ended up inspiring you to become a podcaster. And I'm also the person who like to watch who like to watch reality show. And yes, from the sharing just now, I believe the podcasting is pretty suitable for people, who don't mind sharing their story with the public or interesting thing that happen in their life. So
Yeah.
from your sharing, I think that for podcasting, it's all about sharing kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely.
So true. So guys, if you think you're a person, full of story to tell, podcaster may be another career you can consider in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just
So
like a radio DJ, right, Vivian?
correct. Okay, so let's move on. I'm sure that
Mm,
everyone here knows you have now running a podcast called Kawaii Bio. So
mm.
it brings me to my next question. Perhaps you could tell us more about this podcast, like what were the story behind it and how did you come up with the name for your podcast?
So funny story. Well, at least to me it is. Both me and my sister wanted a name that really rolls off the tongue super nicely, right? Like catchy, fun, simple, yet like really captures what our personality is, which is havoc skillers. And we wanted something that is quite true to our personality and it's like fun and flirty lah. So we've decided to include our initials inside. So it's like Vio, right? So both my sister and I have VIO in our names, and we decided what rhymes with Violette, and then we just throw names at each other like what le. Then suddenly we somehow landed on Hawaii. So back then, Hawaii 5 I'm not sure if you guys know this like detective show was like super popular, and like our father was like always watching it, and we decided Hawaii 5 Kawaii 5 macam boleh kot. So we decided to roll with it, and that's how our name came to be.
Okay, so it was interesting to know that play around with your initials. So if your initials start with Tan, like me, and maybe you can play around with Tan also, right? So
Yeah.
correct, this is very helpful because sometimes when it comes to thinking a certain thing for a title or something, it really needs to take idea from our favorite drama, our favorite idol, songs, lyrics, or even your favorite quote from some celebrities.
Mm.
So yes, and you will suddenly have a idea when you get the element from them. So yeah, at least you have a story and background to share with them when people ask you, "Hey, what is your podcast name come from?" Right.
Yeah,
So
and
sometimes you just
inspiration
need
is
to,
everywhere.
yeah, correct. So sometimes you just really need to play some time and play around with your creativity and by getting the idea from somewhere.
Mm.
Okay, correct. So let's jump to question 3. Because I believe you have recorded all type of episode in since the very beginning of your podcasting journey. So, what was the most memorable episode you have produced? Do they carry any significant meaning for you? You can tell us more about this.
How can I choose my favorite episode when all 21 of them are like my babies? That is like hard to choose lah. It's like you're playing favorites, like choosing your daddy or your mommy. But if I really have to pick, right, it would be definitely episode number 1, which is Vio versus Vi. So in that episode, we kind of like just tell our audience like, hey, this is why we started. And like we introduce our personality, our little backstory of like how our name came to be, our concept of this story, and even why we end our podcast episodes, each episode with like 5 good nights. So if you know, you know. And we just really want to share like how close we are as sisters. So that really came through in the first episode, and we just really liked that vibe lah. And we even included a funny story of how I may or may not wet myself in public in IKEA. May or may not. So you just gotta listen to that podcast episode to find out. And then following that, we have season 1 of the pod, right? Where it spanned across like plus minus 10 episodes. And that is when me and my sister decided to really dive deep into some heavier topics, right? So it's more like vulnerability, a bit more sensitive topics where you wouldn't usually bring up and talk about in a podcast episode or even in public with your friends, family, or closer friends even, right? And we decided to just really openly share about insecurities, vulnerabilities, and that really took so much strength from us to really showcase our authentic self, right? And we really shared our innermost feelings to the world. A bit scary, but that's what we did. And we even, I even cried in some of the recordings of the episode lah. So it was really true to home and true to what we are feeling at that point of time. And then moving forward to season 3, we dive deep into like really light-hearted stories, right? So you will see the transition from episode 11 onwards, where we were just really havocs. We talk about literally anything and anything that's happening in our life currently, because we were really locked at home, right? Thanks to the parallelogram, panoramic pandemic situation. So we just decided to, you know what, spread joy, spread peace and love to like our community and just dive deep into more lighthearted stories. They were really fun to produce and really fun to edit as well. And now we are taking a break, but we are definitely taking over social media soon. So be on the lookout, right? And we're expanding to become full-fledged content creators soon on IG and TikTok. So watch out for that. Yeah.
Okay, there's really a lot of episodes you have mentioned in your sharing, and actually each of them is a sneak preview. So those of you who want to listen to Kawaii Bio, you can go to the Spotify, okay, and type in Kawaii Bio, okay, to listen more of their episode. Okay, and it's really different kind of topic you have mentioned in the sharing just now. Some of them could be a story of the day, or could be some in serious conversation between you and your sister, your
Yeah.
opinion towards a certain thing. And I'm curious something about you mentioned in the sharing just now is about vulnerable and sensitive topic. Because I remember in the episode 2, you have talked about some homosexuality topic, which mentioned gay, BS, straight, which some of the people, might don't want to bring up and share with the public. But why? Why did you choose to talk about this topic in your podcast episode?
Actually, a really good question. So when me and my sister came up with like our podcast like content, right, we just really wanted to talk about things that's really less discussed in like Asian communities, right? Like our Asian countries. So one of it being like sexuality, like no one teaches you like who you should love. I mean, we were taught that, straight is the right way, straight is the only way to go, right? But truth be told, there are definitely like love is boundaryless, and we just really wanted to highlight that in addition to other sensitive topics per se, like insecurities, like really heartfelt topics like paternal pressure on children, these kind of topics that is really deep and you wouldn't necessarily share them with your family, obviously, right? Or you wouldn't even necessarily share them with your friends. So we just really wanted to highlight that and just talk about it in a podcast for the world in a very non-confrontational manner. So how we want to really just structure our whole podcast is that it's like a meme catching up with a tete, and then you are listening into our conversation. That's how we wanted it to be. And like at the same time, like this is just me, right? I really am blessed to have like a sister who is like always there for me, and she always listens to me, and we always have really fun conversation that revolves around like heavier topics. So it was really fun that I have this experience. So it was really nice that I have that platform to kind of like share it with other people who may not have that very great sibling bond or like that close-knit sibling bond with your sister, right? So this podcast will kind of like give you a little peep into how a very good sibling bond is like, and diving deep into topics less discussed by your elder sisters. So you can also be our virtual sibling, our virtual Titi Meme, if you join in and listening to our podcast. So that's what we wanted to do.
Okay, and from we discussed just now, it's about podcasting, it's all about sharing. And from your sharing, it's actually very good because some of the people want to express themselves or voice out for something. So if you take the initiative to open up such a sensitive but it's also important topic to reach out to the people, you may be able to assist those who are in a similar situation, and it kind of like your podcast become the platform for them, a safe space for them to talk about this topic.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to do.
Yeah, all right, that's very cool. So basically, those are some questions to get people to know more about you and your podcast story. And now let's take a more in-depth look at how to start a podcast. All right.
Okay, let's go. This is what
Okay,
everybody
so for
came
this session,
for.
all right.
Yes.
So for this session, we have categorized it into 3 points, which are pre-recording, during recording, and post-recording. So it's fine if some of you want to jot down some ideas, and there are actually some of the guidelines and tips for setting up a podcast. So now I'll pass the time to Miss Violette to talk about the key point to note when it comes to the stage of pre-recording first. All right?
Oh.
So Miss Violette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vivian. All right. Okay, guys. So get your notepad ready, like what Vivian said. But if you don't want to, I'm not going to force you, right? So, but here are basically some of the important tips that I would really like to share, because this whole journey has been like no one really taught me and my sister how to do it, and it's quite nice that we know we are given this platform to really share our tips and tricks. So really hope that you could take away some of it. And without further ado, let's head into phase 1, pre-recording. Okay, so point number 1 is to define your podcast goal. So it's all right to explore and be creative when you're like finding out your podcasting niche, right? Say you're really starting out as a newbie, you don't really know what to do. It's okay to try and error and just have fun and explore what you want to do, right? But always keep in mind your initial purpose of creating a podcast. Is it to just spread positive vibes? Is it to educate your target audience on a heavier topic, say finance? Or are you just, having fun and just want to do like more of a story time kind of podcast? It's up to you, but always have your key message and your key podcast goal in mind, right? So as you can see in this Venn diagram, flashback to SPM Med days, right? So if you see the blue circle, it's all about you, and the red circle is what your audience is about. So when we look at the left circle, which is the blue one, you will see that what is your unique voice, what is your value, and what are your interests, right? So remember that this is your channel. So what do you feel passionate about bringing it onto the table? Like what kind of topics are you passionate to talk about? What things are you comfortable sharing in your podcast, right? And who are they for? And that is where you look to the red circle, right? So who are your target audience? What are they interested to know about? So if you strike a balance between the blue and the red circle, you get a purple circle, right? Yeah, yes, correct. Okay, my pendidikan seni didn't fail me, but that doesn't look purple. It's okay. So that is where you have that sweet spot for a stellar podcast. So remember 2 things: who are you, and what kind of podcast persona do you want to bring forward to? And the red circle, who are your target audience, and how should you make your podcast interesting? And if you combine them both, you will find a middle ground, which is the sweet spot of creating a very, very good podcast. Yeah. Okay. Next, on to the second point. So, podcast recording equipment. Now, you know lah what they say, you have to have equipment, only you can produce something good. You look at like all the famous YouTubers, they have like hundreds and thousands of like tech gadgets, cameras, mics, etc. But to be honest, podcasting, do you actually need that much of equipment that is very expensive? I would say no. As long as your content is good, you will definitely have listeners tuning in, right? But let's dive deeper into what kind of equipments that you should have. So I've created this little short infographic of like what is a good to have and what is a must have. So a must have, definitely a PC or a computer. If not, how you want to edit, you can actually use your phone, yeah, but I prefer like a bigger screen, like a wider screen, so that I can really just look at all of these footages, all of the recordings with ease, right? So I'll definitely recommend you having a laptop, and your PC. I mean, you already have it, I assume, right? And then what is a must-have is definitely a mic. So to be honest, me and my sister use a laptop mic, a laptop built-in mic, not some fancy sound recording mic, right? To be honest, we don't feel that that's a necessity, but if you have it, amazing, good for you. What is another must-have? Obviously, your earphone. If not, how you want to listen to yourself while you record, right? You want to get all the nitty-gritty bits, to make sure that your podcast is polished, is good, and it's like inviting, right? So you definitely need to hear it well. Good to have would be your other tech equipments, like your sound engineering board, I assume, and your like microphone adapter thingy. So I would say that those things are definitely good to have if you have the investment, if you have the money to go for it, definitely good. But definitely podcast is super low maintenance. How Kawaii Bio started is just through like a built-in laptop mic, our own personal laptops, and then we've published, like 21 episodes already, right? But let's move to the next slide, which I will dive deeper into podcast creation software. So this software I super highly recommend. It is called Anchor, as you can see on this slide. It is your magic wonderland app that does so much. And it's just an app, can you imagine it? So you can just record your voice, edit your voice, add a background noise, broadcast your podcast to so many different platforms. And it's so easy to use because you can use it on mobile and you can use it on laptop. So I'll share a link in the chat room, so you guys could definitely check out a step-by-step guide on how to set up an Anchor and how to actually use it. And moving on to the next slide. Yeah, so as you can see, this is just what the amazingness Anchor is, right? So me and my sister use it to schedule our podcast. We even like, the ping. Yeah, it's definitely an Anchor soundtrack. And then we just include it in the beginning, which is super easy. And the best part is this Anchor app allows you to host onto different platforms other than Spotify. Yeah, as you can see in the previous slide, right? Apple Music, Google Music, anything. You can even track your performance, and you can, most importantly, manage how you want your podcast to be. Say you want like this certain episode to go up first, that's doable. You want this episode to be in archive, that's doable. Like, amazing lah. And yeah, this app, this software is definitely what we use. So really highly recommend. And the next step would be content ideas. So this particular section is basically my favorite part when it comes to producing a podcast, right? So how me and my sister like to do it is that we just talk to each other, we just bounce ideas off each other, and we just came up with our amazing content reel, and then the rest is history. And for this particular key point, there isn't really much to advise, right? You just got to know like what are the topics that you're passionate to talk about. Are you comfortable bringing forth certain topics? If yes, that is already a content idea on its own, right? Do you have any interesting stories to share? Do you want to invite a guest for a chat? Because understandably, sometimes podcasts could be a bit boring. Like if you just talk, like what I'm doing now lah, okay, actually. It's a bit boring, but when you have another voice coming in, right, you'd be like, like even your listeners would be like, oh yeah, she's talking to someone. It's like I'm listening into, like your coffee shop conversations kind of situation. So if you have a guest or if you have a podcast buddy to do it with you, to bounce ideas with you, it's definitely amazing. And at the same time, right, these content ideas, when it comes to like coming up with content ideas, it's easier said than done. But to be honest, if you're passionate to talk about a certain topic, you have so much to talk about, right? And that is good. That is the goal here, because you want to identify a topic where you can just go on and talk, right? And then after that, you can expand effortlessly, and your editing self will be like, that's good, Violet. I have so much to edit. In a way, it's like a bit, but then in a way it's good because you have so much to edit and you can really polish up your podcast, right? And make it really concise, make it really interesting for your listeners to tune in. So content ideas, it's everywhere. You just gotta know where to like get inspired and start writing down your ideas. And speaking about writing down your ideas, we are moving into point 4, which is script writing. So this part is really, really crucial, right? You know what they say, preparation is key. And my sister and I always write a script before going into the recording booth, because if not, how do you know what to say, when to say, and how to say it, correct? So I've listed out some of the key points that a great podcast must-haves. So number 1 is basically structure and narrative. So how do you want your storyline to be in that episode? Is it going to be just, or is it going to be like where is the climax? Where is the introduction? Where is the ending? You got to plan it nicely. It's just that, that movies where you watch, right? There's always the climax, plot twist, suddenly boom, boom, pam, pam. You need to have that boom, boom, pam, pam lah in your podcast, right? And then number 2 is personable language. So when you're doing a podcast, right, you want to make it sound like you're talking to a friend, unless it is for like educational purpose, unless it's a lecture lah, okay, then it's a different thing altogether. But personable language in a sense where like you want to sound like you're chatting with a friend. And is this how you are gonna tell a story in real life? You know what I mean? You try to have your tone, your word choices mimic very into reality. So you want to be super like down to earth, like how you would talk in real life lah. And the final point is basically rhythm and flow. So sometimes you talk, right? You forget to breathe, and then you sound like a bullet train. And then you don't want that to happen. So remember to always take pauses in between sentences and to breathe. So it doesn't sound like you're rushing to get to where you are in that story or in that narrative. But ultimately, just have fun lah, okay? Just have fun. Okay. And then finally, to the pre-recording phase, the fifth point is to make your podcast engaging. Remember, you are also talking to someone else. If you're just going to like shock Sendiri and story tell a story, right? People might not want to listen. So how do you want to make them to listen? By making it engaging. Definitely, me and my sister, we like to infuse trends that we find on TikTok, Douyin, Instagram, to just try to make our podcast more like appealing to the masses, right? So these are some of the trends that I see going around on my Instagram, TikTok, right? Bella Port, like build a bridge, okay? And then money heist, oh, yeah. And then all these kind of situations, if you include that into your podcast, I'm sure that your podcast will definitely resonate with your target audience, right? And like it would definitely be more fun and engaging to listen to because you would vibe with people who listens to like trendy stuff because it is so relatable, correct? And you would definitely want to like get into that relatable realm so that your podcast is shareable, it's engaging, it is fun, it is exciting, and people will definitely want to like share it over to their friends and family if they really enjoy it. So that is the goal. And that is all for the pre-recording phase. Back to you, Vivian.
Okay, so these are some of the sharing about pre-recording, like what could you prepare for launching a podcasting, including podcast equipment, software, content ideas, script writing, and all those stuff. So from your sharing, there's one interesting thing that I would like to highlight, which is insert trend. And the one you mentioned, we could include our TikTok songs, memes, and even news. And nowadays, I definitely agree with this point because the TikTok trend are getting famous. The video and the songs go viral because of TikTok or the
Yeah.
Douyin Chinese version. And I'm not sure how many of you watched TikTok or Douyin before. Maybe you can type one if you have a TikTok account. Okay, let me type one. I got. Right, maybe you can type one if you have a TikTok, or actually you are a TikToker, potential TikToker.
Yeah. I definitely am a potential TikToker, guys. Watch out, watch out. Might be
Wow.
on your For You page.
No TikTok. It's okay. So it's okay. So all right. So yes, true. Sometimes you may need to follow up what's the trend and try to play around with it in a creative way that matches your topic as well. Okay, so that's all for the pre-recording. Now, shall we look into some key points to note when it comes to during the recording? Okay.
Can.
Okay, I'll pass
Alright.
you again, Miss Violet. Here you go.
Can. And phase 2, we'll head into what to do during recording your podcast, right? So point number 1 is to always double, triple check before heading into the recording booth. Ask yourself these few questions. Did I plug in my mic? Did I press the record button? Where is my laptop charger? What am I supposed to be saying? You need to ask yourself all these questions before heading into the recording booth. Why? So you're well prepared. Did I plug in my mic? Imagine if you didn't and you didn't record anything. It's like, I need to re-record again. Annoying gila. And then did I press the record button? Oh no, that is the worst lah. The worst case scenario. I don't even need to tell you how dumb that is. Number 3, where is my laptop charger? Sometimes, right, when we record the pod, like me and my sister, we always have our charger on standby because sometimes we talk more than we would like to, and our laptop could die on us. So it's best to just keep your laptop charged, or at least your phone if you're using it. And what am I supposed to be saying? That is why, if you remember what we talked about earlier, right? Script writing is always important. So you wouldn't forget what you want to say and just stumble when you're actually recording the pod, right? And then all these things, if you don't prepare, everything just adds up and eats up your time, and you wouldn't want that, right? Because if you're like a working person like me, time is money, and like you wouldn't want to waste too much of your time because again, you're probably doing this. If it's for a career, then good, but for me it's just like my hobby, right? I'm doing this during my free time, and if it eats up too much of my time, I don't know, man, I'll be so discouraged to just continue forward. So always triple and double check before going into the recording booth. And remember, one important thing is to always check up on yourself. Are you in the right condition to record? If not, it's okay. Reschedule it on a different day. If you do not have that chemistry or that good condition to record with you yourself and your podcast buddy, right? I would say just it's all right. You know what? Keep calm. You can always take this on a different day, because if your energy level isn't what you expected during that podcast, you wouldn't come up with a stellar podcast episode. I mean, true, right? Like if you're not in the best condition to sit for a test, don't expect really good results. This is just what um I'm trying to say as well. So it's all right if you have to reschedule a podcast recording. It's okay. Take care of yourself first. Like mental health is important, people. And moving on to episode pula ni. Point number 7, strategic communication with your co-host. So again, if you're doing a podcast, it is always important to have a good communication with your co-host or your guest, right? In this case, me and my sister, we always abide by these 3 main rules. Number 1, don't speak over each other. Why? Because when you speak over each other, right, there'll be too much going on. Who is your listener going to listen to? You or your co-host? I mean, essentially, they cannot listen to both because they'll be like sensory overload, right? So do not speak over each other. And it also helps you when it comes to editing the podcast. Let's just say you are talking about something really interesting and then you accidentally speak over each other. To be honest, that whole content or like that whole sentence could be interesting, but you might not be able to use it in your podcast because it is just too much going on. It's too messy. So you might or might not lose out on a very great content point that you have to omit because it's just not as polished as you would like it to be, right? And number 2, so me and my sister record our podcast in our bedroom, so obviously we can see each other, eye contact, and therefore we would definitely make sure to maintain eye contact. It's just that how in real life you're speaking to someone, do you look down or do you look at them to the eye and you speak to them? You would definitely want to speak to them eye to eye, right? So that you can like, oh yeah, I resonate, yeah, like the vibe is there. You want that great vibe, you want that great chemistry, right? So maintaining eye contact is crucial. If you're going to do it online, if you're doing it right now, I would say turn on your camera. So at least you can see the other person and then you can vibe together with them, with their facial expression. You can see their body language, their facial language, and that's good enough already. But if you're in person, definitely eye contact is a must. And number 3, now this one is something that me and my sister learned the hard way, right? Signal when you want to interject. I think this goes hand in hand with the first point, in a sense where like you do not want to speak over each other. So what me and my sister do is we raise our hand and then the other person would slowly end their sentence, and that's where we come in. So this is how you ensure a really, really smooth flow between you and your podcast buddy, and you won't be speaking over each other. And I think just something that I really wanted to point out is that when it comes to communicating on a podcast, right, you are essentially just engaging your listeners with their sense of hearing only, because it's not a video where there is voice, there is sound, there is animation that you can see on screen, right? This one is just your voice. So I would definitely say, think of it like you're a radio DJ. Think of it like you're on blah blah FM. Think of it like you are in your own radio talk show and then you are the host. Play around with your tones, try to be as animated as possible. You're engaging them with your voice, right? So make the most out of it. Yeah. And these just are 2 of my points when it comes to during recording phase. So 2 key points here: be prepared, raise hand when you want to interject, and always have fun, build that momentum, build that chemistry with your co-host if you have. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's pretty straightforward and clear guideline. You mentioned too, and you also mentioning about eye contact to ensure the flow of the conversation and use the hand signal when to interject if necessary. So let me ask a question here, because nowadays all of us are stuck at home due to the pandemic. So what is your opinion while we can't interview someone and meet them in person? do you think it's still possible to conduct a co-host, conduct an online interview with co-host? Is it still possible? What's your thought on this?
So if you were to do a podcast right now, right, and like indoors with your laptop and stuff, I would definitely say it's doable. Think of it like you're just chatting with a friend, catching up with them over a video call because maybe you want to record it, right? Or a phone call. It's definitely doable. I know like a few friends of mine, they're actually doing a podcast right now and they're recording it over like meeting platforms. If I'm not mistaken, it's Zoom. Jody, if you're here, hi, thanks for joining. So yeah, they're here and they're actually, recording it online right now, which is amazing, right? Because you might think that, hi Jody, you might think that it's really, really hard to do this kind of things virtually. But to be honest, if you put your heart, your mind, your soul, your energy into it, it is possible. Discord has super amazing noise canceling quality, right? And it's super good if you were to record it over, like using it as a recording platform lah. I would definitely recommend. And I feel that as long as you work together with your co-host or your guest, if you have, it was definitely doable. One thing that I would recommend is to always keep tabs with your co-host and your guest, right? Make sure that they are comfortable in the session, ensure that their condition is good to record. Always brainstorm with them so you kind of build that relationship with them. So the idea process is really smooth, it's really easy, and like you both are comfortable when it comes to bringing up a certain topic, right? So communication is key. Another thing is preparation, as what mentioned before, right? Preparation is key. Make sure that you and your guest, your co-host knows what and when to say things, have a script ready. Always these kind of things, you have to really double up your communication because you're not just dealing with yourself, right? You're dealing with other people. And what we all learned through this pandemic is that communication is really key right now, especially. You do not know what the other person is thinking sometimes because you don't see them in real life, right? Always ask them how are they and like, are they okay with this, that, communication is really key. And I will also recommend you to set up like meetings with the plural S, because you want to build that connection, you want to build that relationship. At the same time, you want to maybe do a dry run of how your whole podcast episode would be like, so that you will know how the flow is and you know when to interject, right? And to not speak over each other, as you can see already illustrated on this amazing slide. And but you know what is the most important thing when it comes to hosting or like producing your own podcast online? Anybody can guess? Just write it on the the chat box. I give it 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, anyways, it's okay. So the most important thing, right, when it comes to podcast, doing it online, like you recording it online, is internet connection. I mean, no brainer, right? If you are using Discord, if you are using your laptop, if you have Google Drive open for your script, all this is like so much things going on. You need to make sure that your connection is on point. You don't want suddenly you talk, very fun, very shocks and then suddenly it's like, hello, can you hear me? Oh, then you have to talk again. It's very like time consuming and it's very like, it kills the vibe a little bit. So always make sure to have stable internet connection and if possible, a quiet and conducive space for you to record your podcast. Yeah, this is definitely some of the things that I would say and advise regarding doing a podcast at home right now virtually with your co-hosts and buddies.
Yes, I definitely agree, and I feel the pain when you mentioning all those, internet problem, and also that's just not you mentioned about we have to build a relationship and talk with our co-host when we conduct an event. Actually, just like you and me, actually we didn't know each other. Actually, we didn't know each other in person, and I just found Miss Violet in LinkedIn, which
Yes.
assignment purpose this semester, and this, I feel like digital world is kind of amazing. Nowadays you cannot need to meet the person, then you can together, and we are here, we host this live sharing session together. So can you think how amazing the digital world is? So yeah,
Exactly.
another problem is the connection. Yes, just now when I enter this sharing session, I feel the pen now when you mentioned, because just now my connection a bit go off. And I
Oh.
try to figure it out. What's that problem? And then I change my, turn off, switch on, switch off. We are not IT person, All we can do is just switch on, switch off, switch on, switch off, like that. Okay, so I must say this is very good point, because I think most of you feel the pain, right? When you giving lecture, and then your connection started to go off. And I definitely feel this pain. And I must say this is a good point, as the internet connection is a key when it comes to the digital world. Right, let me see. Yeah, okay. I believe that you all feel the pain lah. Okay. All right. So just like what you mentioned, double check and triple check when going to the recording booth when it comes to this sort of problem about connection problem. So yeah, when it comes to the online, this is the concern we can take note. Okay. Right. So okay, that's all about during recording stage. We still have the last stage, which is post recording. After that, it will be our Q&A session for all of you. So let's jump straight to the last stage, post recording, to see what should be taking note during this stage. Over to you again, Miss Violet.
Thank you. Okay, phase 3, this is the last stage already. So this one is phase 3 post recording. So let's head into straight to the first point, which is podcast editing. Now this part, I mean, once you already record, what do you have to do? Edit lah, right? So what I like to use is Premiere Pro. I know you guys, if some of you are familiar with Premiere Pro, it's mainly a video editing Adobe software, right? But I use it personally for audio as well, because I like how I can stack the audios on top of each other, and I can actually cut my podcast audio recording into segments. So I would definitely segment it into like the first act, the second act, and the third act, right? If you are familiar when it comes to like movie act terms. So that's how I would like to do it. And it's very easy for me to do it as such, because I get to see like which particular part that I feel that might not be the best fit here, but I can move it here. And with Premiere Pro, I can do that, which is amazing. And the green one in the middle is Adobe Audition. So this one in particular is a Adobe software audio editing platform. So for this one, I don't really use much. I'm still trying hard to navigate this software. I'm fairly new to it, but I use it for noise cancelling and noise reduction. So when your listeners listen into your podcast, right, they wouldn't be hearing a lot of like fan sound, aircon sound, suddenly got crow in the background. No. With this, semua tak ada, which is amazing. And these two apps, or any other apps that you like, right, to edit your podcast, will definitely be your best friends forever when it comes to podcast editing. Because what else, right? What else would be your best friend other than your editing softwares, right? So definitely would recommend Premiere Pro and Audition as well. And if you do not have these platforms, it's all right. There's definitely a lot of like apps that allows you to cut audio. And if you actually sign up for Anchor, you can even cut audio there on the platform itself. So it's really a big help, right, for newbie podcasters. And with that, when it comes to editing a podcast as well, right, me and my sister, we split the work half, so we wouldn't feel like super overwhelmed, right? It usually takes us up to 2 to 3 hours to edit, and we split the work evenly so that we don't feel overwhelmed. We aren't like taking too much time on each other. And if you could do that with your podcast buddy, you both will learn, and this one would definitely be a huge learning curve for you, and for you to create better podcasts with your buddies. So that's equally amazing, you know? And with that, let's move on to the next point, which is to publicize your podcast. So when you create something, don't be shy lah. Just share it to the world. Embrace it. Like send it to the world, let the world do its thing. Would definitely recommend you to share it to your close friends first, and then have them do the word of mouth marketing, as we like to call it as PR practitioners, right? Like just word of mouth, share it to people. Have them listen in as well to the conversation. If you have a public profile when it comes to your IG and Facebook or your TikTok, share it there as well. Who knows, you might gain a new follower, you might gain a new listener here and there, which is amazing. And one thing that is really essential here is to diversify where your podcast can be found. So diversify your podcast platform. So for now, me and my sister use Spotify, but do not just limit yourself to Spotify, right? You can send it out to Google Music, you can send it out to Apple Podcasts, just as many platforms as possible and let the world do its thing. And lastly, we move on to the last point, which is performance analysis. So, as we all know, if you have a goal, you have execution. Lastly, you have evaluation, right? So this is the evaluation part of your project lah. So essentially, this step is super key for continuous improvement. So remember, monitoring performance is really, really key because this allows you to understand what your target audience like from your content. What kind of content do they like the most? And are you maintaining their interest in your podcast or your other content creations, right? You want to maintain the interest. You want to have them tune into every podcast that you push out. So you need to analyze what you did well and what you did not do as well lah. So performance analysis is key. And if you were to look at the next slide, right, you'll see that Anchor, as mentioned earlier, way earlier, is you can track your performance. And this one is just a snapshot of how the Anchor platform is, right? So as you can see, you will see like when is your highest listener rate, like when, so you can see like what episode is your best performing episode. You can see also when and which day itself your podcast have the most listeners. And the best thing is if you look at that purple box, right, you can see that the performance is analyzed within like weekly or monthly, etc., etc. You can really just customize your performance and how you want to monitor them, right? And the best part, you can even know in the next slide when your audience start losing interest in your podcast. So let's just say your podcast is like 13 minutes, 33 seconds. You will see that, okay, as for all content, right, viewership will start to dwindle down, obviously, but you will get to see at which point in time where your viewers or your listenership dwindles. So you can see that there's a really stark drop at the 30-second to 1 minute mark. And from this data, you know that you should create amazing or like super engaging content in the early on of your episode. So this is what I mean by you have to analyze your podcast performance to know what you want to emulate and how you want to improve yourself when it comes to creating better content, right? And essentially, it will definitely push yourself to do better, and you will always have constant improvement, and you will definitely be proud of the amazing work that you put out, And with that, we have concluded the 10 steps of the how to podcast, and I would like to end this little segment with a quote from Audrey Hepburn, the legend. So like, the most important thing is to just enjoy your life, be happy. It's all that matters. So I guess this quote really just rings true to when it comes to your passion project, right? Just enjoy it. Don't feel that it is a burden. And when it starts to become a burden, take some time off, rejuvenate yourself. Yeah, enjoy and be happy. Exactly, Kashing. You know it. That should be like, that is my philosophy when it comes to passion projects. Do not overdo it so that you do not feel burnt out. Yeah, and just enjoy. Yeah. Back to you, Vivian.
Okay, so this is all the post recording and some key takes away from our speaker, Miss Violet. And it's all about, for the post recording, it's all about how could you edit your podcast before publishing, how could you leverage social media and word of mouth to reach out to more people, which is something PR students are familiar with. So, okay, basically these are some useful tips shared by Miss Violet, and I'm pretty sure all of you have gained a lot from the sharing above, as it really provides very detailed information about which software, Anchor, which application you might want to consider using in your podcast in the future if you really plan to have one. Okay, and also don't forget the link shared by Miss Violet just now. You can refer to the video anytime you want because that one is in YouTube. You want to learn more, you can just click inside and go through it. All right, so we have now come to the Q&A session. If you have any question regarding podcasting or any question regarding Kawaii Bio you want to further clarify, feel free to hit the raise hand button. and unmute yourself to talk. And I understand some of you may be a little bit shy to speak up, so you can also type your question down below the chat box, and I will bring them up accordingly. No problem. Okay, so anyone have question? The floor is yours. Okay, there's one question from Bowie. Hi, Miss Violet. I would like to ask that how long do you suggest for a podcast episode?
Good question, Bowie. So personally, I prefer podcasts that is like less than 20 minutes, unless like I really, really like that topic, right? But 20 minutes is generally like the rule that I go by. And to be honest, sometimes you watch a 2-minute YouTube video, you also be like, "Aya, sian." Right, because our attention span is also like super short thanks to like short form videos on TikTok that we always scroll and like enjoy, right? So when it comes to the duration of a podcast, like how long should it be? Kawaii Bio, we kept our podcast to be in between 12 to 15 minutes. We feel that it is the perfect timing for you to just tune in, let it sit while you get your makeup done, or like you grab a cup of drink, right? And then after that, you can just tune in and have it play as a background, like what I think Akil say in the beginning, right? And then just enjoy it as you carry on with your day. And like 12 to 15 minutes, I would say is definitely the sweet spot, because it'll be amazing if someone can listen to the whole show, but if not, if they listen to the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it's really, really good already, right? And with that said, like listeners, attention span is really, really short. So as long as you have really, really good content that is engaging, it doesn't that matter how long your podcast should last, because if your listener is interested, they will continue to the end. But I would say do not go too long. Do not go way like overboard lah. I would say 12 to 15 minutes is like a good starting point.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, you may ask a question. I think Jodie has a question.
Hi, bye.
Hi.
This question is has been pondering in like my head and my friend's head for a while. Is that would you suggest to record everything? Like for example, you have 12 episodes, for example. Would you suggest to record everything, then edit, or do it on a weekly basis? So record, then edit, record, and edit. Yeah.
Really, really good question, Jodie. So the funniest thing is for the whole season of Kawaii Bio, right? The whole season 1, me and my sister pre-recorded everything, and then we edited it, and then we scheduled for upload. Something that we learned throughout that first season is that sometimes that is like really good on your end as a content creator because you have so much inventory, right? And you're just waiting for it to be pushed out. But one thing is it timely enough when you push it out onto like the live day itself? What we find is that sometimes it's not like amazing, because let's just say your content, right, resonates better with this current time and climate, right? But when you push it out like in a month's time, the content that you're producing or like you're going live might not be timely anymore. So I guess it runs down to what your content is. Is it like, does it have any trendy elements? Does it involve any trendy topics or like any current topics? If it does, I would say do it weekly if that is in your case. If not, you can definitely stagger it according to like building up the inventory and just waiting it for it to just go live just like that. So does that answer your question, Jodie? Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any question regarding podcasting or Kawaii Bio? Okay, while waiting for others people, let me raise one more question, okay, before we chat. Okay. Right. I would like to ask, because you have come across a few steps when to start your podcast. What is the challenge that you face, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So one of the biggest challenge that I face is that basically you need to always shock sendiri when it comes to being a content creator, right? So as someone who creates content, right? Yes, you do it because it's fun, you enjoy it, you know, your partner or like your buddy enjoys doing it together with you. But when you put it out into the world, right, you have no control already. It's like, and then sometimes you might not get the best like likes, you might not get the best engagement, you might not get the best performance once you put out something that you're super proud of, right? How do you want to maintain that momentum of like keep going? Yes, I'm so hyped to be a content creator. Yes, I love what I'm doing. Because sometimes, right, you do not actually get the support that you wish from your closer circle, right? Like support from the outer circle might actually be greater than those who are closer to you, like your best friends per se, right? And how do you want to like still have that spirit to continue going on? Like that is the biggest part. Like how do you still want to be shocked, Cindy? So the funniest thing is like we look to our friends and family for support and encouragement for everything, especially like in the beginning of like our passion project. You'd be like, hey mommy, I'm doing this there, you know, come and join. Or like, hey 朋友, I'm actually doing this, like and support. But they will do it in the beginning, but as you continue to do it, you might find that they are not supporting you anymore because they are actually maybe, you know, they are not actually interested in your content, which is fine, you know. But you need to have that reminder that, you know what, you're doing what you like, and you know this is your passion project, you know, you're putting yourself out there, and it's all right if your closest circles aren't your biggest supporters. Just know that in the end of the day, someone out there is really supportive of your content. When you read through the positive comments, you know, like I hope that that just brings you up, brings your morale up, and allows you to continue to go forward. And like one thing I really like to say is that never let others dim your creative spirit, because there's always going to be someone out there who love and appreciate what you do, your content that you put out. So never give up, just keep on going. And jokes to the way, yes.
Okay, and this was the quote you given just now. Do it for happy. If you think that the things that make you happy, you just go for it, right? Chase your dream. Yeah, okay, and there's one more question from Hui Ying. Mentioned that, hi, Miss Violet, when it comes to the podcasting, would you say being lecturer is an important, oh, sorry. Hui Ying, question is, have you ever encountered bottleneck status? For example, if you can't think of a theme, what will you do?
Like a creative block lah, right? I'm assuming. So when it comes to creative block, like I would say bounce your ideas off with the people around you. Like I work best when it comes to just talking and just letting out what is on my mind, bouncing off ideas with someone, right? I am that person who likes to speak. And like from other people's perspective, other people's ideas, I'll be like, oh, this is what like is interesting. Like, okay. I definitely want to, you know, go forth with the idea or something like that. If you don't have someone to bounce idea off, inspiration is everywhere, like what Vivian mentioned. Go on TikTok, go on YouTube, listen to your favorite podcast, you know, pinpoint something that you actually like from that episode and try to talk about it. So try to like emulate the episode in a sense where you talk on like that specific moment that you actually enjoy. Or if you have a fun story to tell, go for it, talk about it. And yeah, so creative block, I would say it's something that everybody experience it, but just go where inspiration is full. Go on your social media and check things out. TikTok for inspiration, listen to your favorite audiobook, your podcast, and just enjoy.
Okay, great. One last question from Bradley. Say that, hi, Miss Violet, when it comes to the podcasting, would you say being natural is an important aspect or categories or a characteristic to have? If so, why? I think Bradley,
Uh,
when it comes to
Let
podcasting,
me
would you
just-
say nature is an important aspect?
you mean like being someone who talks really, really naturally, like isn't afraid to share, is it? If that's the case, okay. To me, as a podcaster, right? You want to come across as naturally like you're speaking to your friend as possible, so that someone would be like, hey, like when they listen into your conversation, uh they're really comfortable listening in. At the same time, like they aren't afraid to just like resonate with your ideas or resonate with your story, right? You want to have that very down to earth element when it comes to presenting your podcast, or you also want to have that like she is like a friend lah to me, that kind of vibe. That is the vibe that you want to go forth with your podcast. For example, like Kawaii Bio, that's the vibe that we want to be, because we want to be like your bigger姐姐, your oldies, you know, and have you listening to our like casual conversations. So that is what we want to do. But I guess it also depends on what your podcast direction is, right? If it's more of a serious discussion podcast, then maybe that characteristic to have is a more like professional, a more formal way of presenting your thoughts, right? But if it's a more casual, I would say natural, true to your real personality would definitely be the way to go forth lah. I hope that answers your question, Bradley. If not, you can definitely unmute and speak, or you can definitely type out follow-up questions.
Okay, and there's one last question from Inza. She said that let's say you're going to do a podcasting for a company instead of yourself, what will you do differently? Or people, actually, we are run out of time. We keep this question during we keep this question, and then we will answer you, email you personally. All right? If you can give me a raise hand. We will answer you personally through email. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we've run out of time. Okay, thank you for being so proactive in asking so many questions. Since we have not much time left, give me a few more minutes. I would like to have a group photo with all of you. So feel free to turn on your camera. Okay, let's see. Is everyone ready? Okay, so on my count of 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's take one more, because when I say got people open already. Okay, one last one. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. So before we say goodbye, you can now see in the chat box below, there's a link. Wait, I haven't pasted. There's a link regarding our evaluation form. We hope that you can take your time to fill up the form for us, which means it really means a lot to me and my team. So, all right, start from now. I would like to give you a few more minutes to fill in the form. Right. 2 more minutes from now.
Oh yeah, as you guys are like, filling up the survey form and like being proactive like audience, I just really want to say, like, if you have the time, feel free to check out Kawaii Bio on Spotify, and you can hear me and my sister just chat about random things that might be interesting. So yeah, just wanna throw in a plug here and there. Thank you. Thank you, Bradley.
Hey, okay, I hope that you have completed the survey form. Okay, let's move on to the closing remarks. Okay, guys, we have now come to the end of our sharing section. I hope you have enjoyed the sharing today. And for those who are here, I appreciate the time of your busy schedule to join us today. And I hope that our sharing today they help those of you who may not know anything about podcasts. At least now you have some ideas and learn something today. And also for those who plan to start your own podcast, I hope you enjoy the sharing today as much as I do. So, okay, Miss Violet, let's give a few words to end this sharing session before we chat.
Boleh. So today has been super fun and really like to thank everyone present and those who have joined midway. A really awesome time to have you guys here and listening into my sharing session. So hope that everyone enjoyed it and thank you team for conducting this amazing session. If it's not too much to ask, just like I want you guys to stay safe, take care and Kawaii Bio, please listen. Thank you guys so much for having me. I hope everyone have a great day ahead.
Okay, so all right, thank you, Miss Violet. Ladies and gentlemen, the flight has now arrived at the destination. Thank you once again for traveling with us today, and thank you to Miss Violet for being our guest speaker. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy during this pandemic, and I know it's been a tough time. Hang in there, guys. Let's get through this together. Get yourself vaccinated. Keep yourself hydrated. All right, with that, my name is Vivian. It's been a pleasure to be your host today, and I will see you when I see you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.